Okay, so we can talk about transcription in some other ways as well, right? You don't have to transcribe an entire solo. You can just take one lick. So let's say that over a D minor chord, that you hear this lick. And you say, oh, that's a really nice lick. And you could analyze it. You could say, well, what is it? It's the 9. You're going to the 3rd. You know, this is D minor 9. It's also F major 7. You know, you can analyze it from a lot of different ways. That's not so important to me, although I think it's useful. It's good for you to do that. But what I would do with this is I would take this and play it. You could play it in different keys or in different iterations in the same key. So in that case, I'm just treating it like a scale sequence, just a pattern of intervals and notes, and I'm just playing it up and down the scale. In this case, up and down the scale with no sharps and no flats. But you could also take the actual lick and put it in different keys. So D minor, E flat minor, E minor. You could do that if you want to. That's all great. It's all worth doing. Again, I would say write it out. And then eventually that will accelerate your ability to hear it and to conceptualize it in other ways and to commit it to memory. Again, I realize that this is going to go against what other people will tell you, but that's what I believe. But here's what I think is the most interesting thing, is to take that lick that we transcribed and do micro improvisations on that lick. So I could ask Denny to just maybe play a bossa vamp on D minor for me, for example, you know, something like. And what I'm going to do is, and you could do this yourself by using, creating your own backing track in many ways, whether you do it in a loop pedal, whether you have a friend play it for you, whether you record yourself playing it and you just loop it, or there's all kinds of apps out there that you can do this with nowadays, right? iReal Pro or whatever it might be. In fact, I think, I don't know about all those things, but I know that there's ways to set this up for yourself. What we're going to do is I'm going to play this lick, but then I'm going to play it like maybe 10 times in a row. And each time I play it, I'm going to just try to change a little tiny thing, right? It could be changing one note or it could be changing some rhythm. So here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... So you see how I do that? Just taking that tiny bit of material and making very small changes to it. This is really an awesome thing for you to work on in terms of improvisation. And we're, again, using a different part of your brain because we're really kind of using an intuitive or an ear side of the brain. And this, to me, is super useful. And a lot of jazz musicians, by the way, for example, the saxophonist Bill Evans, who I worked with for 6 years, he told me that this was primarily the single thing that he did to learn his entire language as a jazz saxophonist. And he's a world-class jazz saxophonist. I mean, he's an amazing, one of the best, a legend, really. And he told me that basically he had 3 licks, kind of like this. Maybe they were a little longer, maybe they were based on a 2-5-1 or something. And he would practice those, and he would just deviate on them. And he would practice them in different keys and just make these sort of micro improvisations, just very intuitive, hearing his way through those licks to create different. So that's a very important type of process for you to engage with. And what I think is going to be super helpful for you is to limit the amount of content that you do it with. So if you try to do that over like Autumn Leaves, the entire song, and you just try to be intuitive and just use your ear, that's a mistake in my opinion. That's a waste of time also. because you're not really internalizing the progression. First, you need to internalize the song. But if you take a very small amount of material, like, one chord, one lick, one bar, and you allow yourself to really get to know that small amount of material intuitively using your ears, that's very useful. So this is all about conceptualization, right? When we talk about knowing a scale or knowing a song, what are all the different ways that we can know it? We can know it by hearing it. We can know it by feeling it. We can know it through the rhythm. We can know it through the bass line, through the harmony, through the melody. So many different ways to think about conceptualizing it. We could see it on the staff. We could see it on a piano fretboard. We could see the fingerings. So my approach is to strengthen as much as possible all ways that I conceptualize of the music. So if I see D minor 7, I want to be able to hear it. I want to be able to see the fingerings. I want to be able to see the notes on the staff. I want to think about the theoretical implication, the intervals. There's so many different ways to do this. But this also lends itself to different processes for creating. And so one way that you can focus on the creative process is, instead of in the moment trying to improvise, you can set your instrument down, or you could have it at your side, and you could get a pencil and a score paper, and you could just think and take your time. And I used to do this, a lot, and I still do sometimes. From the creative standpoint, I think it's important to try every process that works for you. So taking a pencil and thinking, okay, I've got 2 bars of D minor 7. What do I think would sound good? And writing it down. And then you can pick up your instrument and you can say, well, let me see how that sounds. You will be amazed at what you discover from this process. You'll be amazed.